Exclusive contracted novel by Feilu Novel Network. The illegitimate son of the Red Chamber. Matches Lady Cheng Si at the beginning. Jia Xuan, who became the illegitimate son of the Jia family through time travel. Immediately after, he was forced by the Jia family to form a marriage alliance, and the target of the alliance was Lady Cheng Si. As the illegitimate son of the Jia family, he was already in a low position, and his mother passed away early. Jia Xuan's situation was very difficult. If Cheng Shaoshang, who was already pitiful, marries the Jia family, wouldn't he suffer a lot of injustice? Fortunately, Jia Xuan awakened the check.In system and signed in for 3,000 Snow Dragon Cavaliers at the beginning. Move down bandits, conquer foreign tribes in the north, conquer South Vietnam in the south, enfeoff marquises, and pay homage to the Prime Minister, overcome all obstacles, rise all the way. Champion Ho, the head of the internal treasury, the director of the Supervisory Institute, and the Duke of Zhenguo have all become famous in the world, causing everyone in the Jia family to regret their actions. And all that Jia Xuan did was originally intended to protect the poor little girl. Mrs. Cheng Si, but along the way, he also had a few beautiful confidants. Daiyu, Baochai, Zhao Pan'er, Sheng Minglan, Sutan'er. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. The illegitimate son of the Red Chamber, Jia Xuan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Pain. My head hurts so much. Strange memories rushed in like a tide, making Jia Xuan unable to help but cover her head. After touching a stick of incense, Jia Xuan widened her eyes. He murmured to himself, I have traveled to the world of red mansions and become the illegitimate son of Rongguo Mansion, Jia Xuan. In his past life, Jia Xuan could also be considered a familiar reader of the Red Chamber and had read many Red Chamber novels. He knew clearly that there was no Jia Xuan in the Jia Mansion. I don't know why there is an extra Jia Xuan in this world. Wait, it's not just a world of red buildings. The Great Zhou Dynasty. Jia Xuan frowned slightly. He sorted out a large amount of memories clearly. The history of this world is very strange. Since the Sui dynasty, it has been under a warlord regime similar to that of the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms. Even Li Yuan and Li Er were unable to rule the world. They were just the rulers of the Tang dynasty. The entire Yan and Huang ethnic group has been engaged in internal strife for over 500 years, and countless proud sons of heaven have risen and fallen like comets. During this period, it was hailed as a more chaotic era than the spring and autumn period and the warring states period. Internal conflicts continue, and foreign tribes take advantage of the situation to enter. The land of the Central Plains is charred with life. It was not until the rise of the Zhou dynasty 100 years ago and the conquest of the Central Plains that foreign tribes were gradually driven out and the world was pacified. The Jia family, on the other hand, was one of the earliest veteran Wusun families to follow Emperor Taizu and conquer the world. They were one of the 4 kings and 8 nobles, and their power was unimaginable. But, Jia Xuan knew that the prosperity of the Jia family was only external. After several generations of extravagance, the Jia family had long been rotten to the bottom. Especially when yin is abundant and yang is declining, a martial arts aristocratic family, resulting in only a few male descendants in the clan. The Grand View Garden is full of warblers, swallows, and swallows. The most favored grandson is still Jia Baoyu, who mixes in rouge, water, and powder every day. This kind of family decline is inevitable. My identity is the child born by Jia Shi, an old lecher, and a concubine. I can be regarded as Jia Lian's younger brother and Jia Baoyu's elder brother. Shi Shangyun once called me love brother, but I never spoke to me again after being scolded. As for my mother's early death, I am not valued at all. My predecessor was forced to death because I didn't want to get married. Jia Xuan let out a bitter smile. The son of a commoner, who has no mother, and his father is Jia Shi, the Shiku. I'm afraid his position is inferior to that of servants. The reason for the previous marriage alliance led Jia Xuan to discover some clues. In the Great Zhou dynasty, the old emperor's army pointed northward and defeated the Xiongnu. A new group of generals, Sun Gui, rose up, including a Wu Sun family named the Qing family. Although Jia Mu is greedy for pleasure, she is not really a fool. I heard that the Qing family happened to have a newly ordained Cheng Si Nyang, who had the intention of marrying the Qing family and consolidating their position. But what family is the Jia family? Although they wanted to get married, not a single member of the Ronghua mansion truly appreciated the newly rising Qing family, and even many servants looked down upon the Qing family, and it is even more impossible for Mrs. Wang and Mrs. Jia to marry Jia Baoyun. Lady Cheng Si Jia Lian has already married, and his illegitimate sons Jia Huan and Jia Zong are not old enough, so, the Jia family set their sights on Jia Xuan. Jia Xuan refused to comply, contradicted Mrs. Wang, and was insulted by servants. She died in a fit of anger, leading to the current situation where Jia Xuan traveled across the country. Qing family, Mrs. Cheng Si, it seems that this world is really not simple. Jia Xuan's eyes were inexplicable. Mrs. Cheng Si is sensible, understanding right and wrong, delicate and pitiful. She has lacked love since childhood, is a little bird and a beautiful flower. She is willing to marry Mrs. Cheng Si in her heart. It's just Jia Xuan was bullied like this in the Jia mansion. If Lady Cheng Si marries, wouldn't she have to be bullied to death? You should know that Mrs. Cheng grew up without her parents and was bullied by her peers. Her elders, Gushi and Mrs. Cheng, were even more disgusted with Mrs. Cheng and even placed her in foster care at a farmer's house, unable to eat enough. Even, Mrs. Cheng's greatest hobby is to take a bite of her treasured pancake. Poor Mrs. Cheng Si, Jia Xuan couldn't bear to let her marry and suffer with her. We need to rise rapidly. Jia Xuan's eyes flickered as she pondered on the way to rise. Whether in his official career, joining the army as a general, or in business, he can do very well. After all, he is a traveler, and he still has the confidence to do so. In terms of academic research, there is no such great poet as Li Bai and Du Fu in this world. He can easily become a copyist and hold a position of official. In terms of generals, Jia Xuan was an outstanding graduate of a first-class military academy in his past life. If he were to lead troops in battle, it would be simple to be called a famous general. Even worse, becoming a businessman, lime, papermaking, and printing are all professions that allow travelers to become wealthy. All three are acceptable, but if it's the most suitable, it's still the journey of the generals. Because, with the eyes of Jia Xuan, a first-class military academy graduate, it is clear that the world seems calm in front of him, but in reality, the undercurrent is surging. The Great Zhou dynasty occupied the Central Plains, but the 9 frontier foreign tribes were not completely eradicated, and they often violated the borders. The Tatars, Xiongnu, Turks, South Vietnam and other foreign tribes were eyeing the land of the Central Plains. However, within the Great Zhou dynasty, banditry was extremely serious, and many court officials were even killed by bandits on their way to the place. From this perspective, it is absolutely unacceptable to start developing as a merchant and openly give money to bandits. And if there is no support from prominent figures in the court behind the bandits, Jia Xuan would not believe it. It is okay for bandits to dare to kill the court officials, but there must be support from prominent figures. It can be seen from this that the interior of the court is also quite chaotic. At this time, the emperor of the Zhou dynasty was the second emperor of the Zhou dynasty. In his early years, he ruled the country with culture and restored the vitality of the Zhou dynasty. He was the top emperor who played with power. Unfortunately, in his later years, the old emperor was addicted to alchemy. Although he could still play with the techniques of the emperor, he was already powerless. This also leads to an imbalance of power among all parties in the court. The crown prince's position is surrounded by many powerful figures, with all sides standing in line and intense party struggles. If choosing a civil servant, if you don't give up, you'll die without a place to bury yourself. From this perspective, joining the army in becoming a general is the most suitable starting point. Bandits are rampant, and foreign tribes on the 9 sides are eyeing. Isn't this a great time to establish achievements? Moreover, the generals hold the power of war and are able to achieve the minimum level of self-protection. As soon as the old emperor died, the Jia family was immediately raided. I need to take action quickly. Jia Xuan's eyes fixed, and she had already made a decision in her heart. Let's start with generals and survive in this chaotic world. That's right, Jia Xuan's current goal is just to survive. After all, he is just a time traveler with no golden fingers around him, and it's still the beginning of hell for a commoner like the Jia family. To live is already a luxury. But at this moment, a mechanical voice without any emotional fluctuations rang out from Jia Xuan's mind. Attendance system awakening. Daily check.In rewards can be obtained, and the higher the host's identity and status, the richer the rewards obtained by check.In. First check.In, give beginners a top-level check.In reward once. Check-in or not. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Check-in system, Qubing template. You are listening at novel full.audio. Jia Xuan was slightly stunned, and then a hint of ecstasy appeared on her face. Golden finger. Finally here. At present, without hesitation, Jia Xuan said in a deep voice, sign in. Sign in successful. You have obtained the Qubing template. You have obtained 3,000 Snow Dragon Cavalry. What else is there to say? Jia Xuan's eyes were already filled with surprises. It's truly a newbie reward. It's just rich. Next, a light screen that only Jia Xuan could see appeared before his eyes. Qubing template. Great Master level cultivation, Grand Master level cavalry commander experience, Grand Master level equestrian, archery, marksmanship. Nankyimeng. Qubing's life journey can be touched and used with thoughts. Jia Xuan took a deep breath and looked at the dazzling rewards, her heart full of pride. You know, in this world, there is a continuous stream of famous generals and strategists, which is more prosperous than during the Three Kingdoms period, and whether it's a famous general or a strategist, they are all divided into non-mainstream, third-rate, second-rate, first-class, master, and great master. Now, not to mention any other rewards, just talking about the cultivation of the great master can make Jia Xuan soar and show off her skills in the army. He not only has the confidence to survive, but also the confidence to make achievements, become a king and minister, and live a carefree life for a lifetime. After all, the great master, one person can defeat thousands of soldiers and horses. Even in the entire Zhou dynasty, there were only 5 countable figures at the level of great masters. This reward is really too strong. Taking a deep breath, Jia Xuan turned to look at Nankyimeng. Use Nankyimeng. Jia Xuan's mind twitched slightly, touching the panel, and then she felt her mind flutter before falling asleep. In my dream, he became the champion of the Han dynasty, Qubing. In his youth, he spent his time among a group of slaves, poor and difficult, even daring to be bullied by servants, which can be said to be unbearable. Fortunately, his uncle Wei Qing taught him martial arts, and he gradually grew up. He followed his uncle into the army and directly attacked the Xiongnu. In the border desert, solitary smoke rises straight up. He led 800 elite cavalry, crisscrossed the battlefield, defeated 3,000 enemies, and was awarded the title of champion. He also led tens of thousands of elite soldiers, and in 7 days, he continuously defeated 7 major tribes, advancing alone and killing Marquis Lu and King Zhelan. He shouted, "Ko can go, I can also go, capture the son of Chanyu alive, and capture the sacrificial gold man. Defeat the Xiongnu, slay 100,000 enemies, and drive them out of Heshi." Amidst the bloodshed on the battlefield, Jia Xuan has perfectly integrated with Qubing's bravery and martial arts, with perfect inheritance of equestrian, archery, marksmanship, and military tactics, all of which are incredibly exquisite. At this point, Jia Xuan couldn't distinguish whether she was dreaming or really being Qubing. Finally, in the mournful songs of the Xiongnu, losing my Qilian mountains has left my 6 livestock unrestrained, losing my Yanji mountains has left my married wife colorless. Qubing laughed heartily and returned to heaven. Everything is like a dream, suddenly shattered. Jia Xuan also woke up in an instant. Nank Yiming is over, you have perfectly loaded the Qubing template. Jia Xuan was panting heavily, her eyes full of confusion. This Nank Yiming is like he has gone through more than 20 years of life, growing from a child to the world-renowned champion Qubing. Jia Xuan couldn't even distinguish between dreams and reality. That's too real. It took a full 15 minutes for Jia Xuan to recover from her confusion, and a hint of determination flashed in her eyes. I'm not Qubing. I'm Jia Xuan. Qubing grew up among the maidservants and became a generation champion. I, Jia Xuan, can do the same. Jia Xuan's temperament is also extraordinary. If it were an ordinary person, it would be difficult to accept reality so quickly if he suddenly went from being a world-renowned champion Ho Xinjiang to a lowly commoner in the Jia family. But Jia Xuan can do it. This is also where he is extraordinary. Great, in this way, I can showcase my skills in the military. And there is still one reward that hasn't materialized. 3,000 heavy snow dragon riders. Jia Xuan's eyes sparkled with brilliance. 3,000 snow dragon cavalry can be said to be the pinnacle of cavalry. The Snow Dragon Cavalry gifted by the system, each one is a first-class expert, and the horses under their crotch are also excellent horses that can easily kick second-rate experts to death, and it also comes with a master named Sutan'er, who is arranged by the system to come from the Yuan family. The Snow Dragon Cavalry also has a seamless background arrangement. The most important thing is that the Snow Dragon Cavalry is fully armored, and even the warhorses have customized warhorse armor. It also comes with a Northern Liang sword and crossbow, running like flying, with extraordinary speed and great killing power. Although the armor of the Snow Dragon Cavalry is not as strong as the steel flood of the Iron Floating Two, it is still enough to defeat any elite cavalry in the Great Show. Okay. The Qubing template obtained by oneself is specialized in cavalry, and obtaining the Snow Dragon Cavalry can be said to be an icing on the cake. Jia Xuan's eyes were burning. The next question is how to get into the military camp. In theory, as Jia Xuan, it is difficult to leave the Jia family and infiltrate the military camp, but Jia Xuan has already figured out a way. After getting up, Jia Xuan walked out of her own room. The yard is not very large, and can even be described as cramped. The weeds in the yard have not been repaired for a long time. If outsiders forcefully enter this courtyard, they may even suspect that it is actually the courtyard of the Jia family. Haha. I was so angry that no one noticed me in the room. I didn't have any maids around me, and my predecessor was also miserable. Jia Xuan gave a bitter smile, but she didn't get angry. I can't say it's precisely because no one noticed that I crossed over. Leaving her own courtyard, Jia Xuan walked straight towards Jia Zheng's house and encountered many servants along the way, but none of them spoke to her. Moreover, Jia Xuan did not see Jia Baoyu along the way. It must be that Jia Baoyu has already moved into the Grand View Garden with a group of warblers and Yen Yen. Knocking on the door, there was a typing sound, and Jia Xuan walked into Jia Zheng's room. I have seen the second master. Have you figured it out? Jia Zheng raised his head. If there is any character in the Jia mansion of the Red Chamber that is somewhat normal, then it is only Jia Zheng. Jia Zheng has been fond of reading since childhood, and he is upright and upright. He is also the only man in the Jia family who works well as an official outside. That's why Jia Xuan came to find Jia Zheng. Previously, Jia Xuan refused to accept her marriage to Lady Cheng Si, causing a big uproar. However, this angered everyone in the Jia family. Later, Jia's mother spoke up and locked Jia Xuan in the yard for reflection. No one was allowed to interfere with him, and only after thinking it through could she come out. So Jia Zheng asked Jia Xuan if she had figured it out. Yes. Jia Xuan nodded. A glimmer of joy flashed in Jia Zheng's eyes. Although he was extremely strict with Jia Baoyu, after all, he was Jia Baoyu's biological father. If Jia Xuan really forced her to death, then only Baoyu would be suitable for a marriage alliance, but Baoyu will not form a marriage alliance, and the Jia family will only miss one ally. Although the Jia family is prosperous, it's not a big deal to miss out on a newly appointed military general and noble ally, but if Jia Xuan can accept it, that's certainly good. But I have one condition. What conditions? My nephew requests to join the army and defend the border. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. Propose to the Cheng family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since the establishment of Daiyu, the descendants of the 4 kings and 8 princes all need to go to the 9 borders to defend the border and obtain achievements in order to inherit their titles. If they have no achievements, they can only retire and inherit their titles. By now, except for the Niu family and a few more prestigious families among the 4 Wangs and 8 princes, most of the other families sent their illegitimate sons to defend the border, and no one focused on achieving success and success. The Jia family is no exception. Even now, Jia Zheng is the only one who is still doing well in his official career because of the border defense. The old emperor has blamed the Jia family more than once. Now that Jia Xuan himself proposed to go to the border defense, Jia Zheng naturally readily agreed. Not only agree, Jia Zheng was also very proactive in saying that he would use his connections to help Jia Xuan secure a position in the army and not start with soldiers. On the surface, Jia Xuan was grateful. In my heart, I sneer. In fact, it was precisely because of so many human relationships that many of the sons of the wandering princes and nobles held high positions, which led to the successive defeats in the border fortress. Only Cheng Si of the Cheng family won this battle. But Jia Xuan wouldn't be like those wine bags and rice bags. After bidding farewell to Jia Zheng, Jia Xuan left, and Jia Zheng went to the backyard to inform Jia's mother about this matter. Rongshi Hall. Jia's mother, Mrs. Wang, Mrs. Xing, Wang Shifeng, Jia Shi, Jia Zheng, Jia Xian, Jiao Yan, and many servant girls gathered here. As for Jia Baoyu and other young people, they didn't know where to hang out. Jia Shi, Jia Xian's biological father, gave her a grim look. However, Jia Xian did not care. He has already guessed. It was just that Jia Shi felt that he was his concubine, and instead of telling him about his acceptance of the engagement, he went to Jia Zheng. In the face of Jia Shi's anger, Jia Xian did not take it seriously. As long as he enters the army, it will be like a bird flying high in the sky, a fish leaping in the broad sea, and returning again. No one in the Jia family dares to make a fool of him. Nyezi. When Jia Shi saw Jia Xian's indifferent attitude, he couldn't help cursing in a low voice. Wang Shifeng smiled and said, "On a day of great joy, Brother Xian has accepted his engagement and is going to defend the border. Jia Mansion is blessed with double happiness." Jia Mu also agreed, "It's extremely extreme. Are you sure what Jia Xian said is true? The grandson is certain." Jia Xian nodded. Jia Mu nodded and said with a smile, "Okay, then the Jia family will get married first, and then you can go to the border defense. The Jia family will help you manage the military affairs, so that you don't have to sit up from the soldiers anymore. It's also safer. Thank you to our ancestors." Jia Xian bowed, but in reality, she sneered in her heart. Jia Mu's words may seem to be caring about him, but in reality, they are not. I first married Lady Cheng Si, and even if this marriage is settled, the Cheng family will become an ally of the Jia family. Even if Jia Xian dies, the Cheng family will not be able to leave the Jia family. Even if Lady Cheng is widowed for Jia Xian's entire life, she must stay at the Jia family and maintain the relationship between the two families. It can be said that it is not cruel. As for others, they are just talking about the situation. Jia Mansion is like this, each with their own ulterior motives, talking about people and ghosts. Jia Xuan was extremely tired of hearing it, but now she still had to use the Jia family's connections and endure it. After all, although the Jia family is in decline, the skinny camel is bigger than the horse. The Jia family's ability to use connections to promote Wang Zidong to the position of governor of the capital is enough to demonstrate the Jia family's network. Working in the military can help Jia Xuan with a lot of things left. After another scene, Jia Mu decided to send someone to the Cheng family tomorrow to propose marriage, and then waved her hand to disperse the crowd. Damn it, come with me. Jia Shi glared at Jia Xuan and said bitterly. Yes. Soon, Jia Xuan followed Jia Shi into the house. Kneel down. Jia Shi said viciously, come on, take the big board. Today I will teach you a lesson. You didn't tell me about such things first. A few servants walked into the door and handed a large board. From their appearance, I think it's no surprise to see this. After all, Jia Shi would take out his anger at Jia Xuan if he had any trouble. Basically, Jia Xuan has to be beaten up for a few days every month and can't get out of bed, which is very miserable. But the current Jia Xuan is no longer the former Jia Xuan. After my wedding, I will go to the border defense. If it delays the defense, I'm afraid you can't afford it. Jia Xuan put down a word, turned around and left without even calling out her father. Nonsense, although he has a blood relationship with Jia Shi, how can he call this guy father? You evil beast. Jia Shi trembled with anger and pointed at Jia Xuan's back with a board, but he also knows that, now that I've beaten Jia Xuan, if it delays the border defense, Jia's mother will blame me, and the military will blame me. Then he really can't take responsibility. After being angry for a while, Jia Shi put down the board and went to find a concubine. In the early morning of this day, with the sound of gongs and drums, Zhou Rui, along with Jia Xuan and many servants, drove a carriage to the Cheng family to propose marriage. This week, Rui is a high-ranking servant who is in charge of collecting rent for the fields in spring and autumn. Sending him to propose marriage is already considered very prestigious for the Cheng family in the eyes of Jia Mu and others. After all, the Jia family is one of the 4 Wangs and 8 princes, while the Cheng family is just a newly appointed martial arts family. The Jia family's ability to marry the Cheng family, in their view, is already a great gift to the Cheng family. Even Jia Shi thought it was too much to send a boy and Zhou Rui, Mrs. Cheng Si. Jia Xuan murmured to herself. If Mrs. Cheng agrees to the engagement, he will marry her and take care of her for a lifetime. If Mrs. Cheng does not agree, he also has a way to protect the Cheng family. Soon, the Cheng family arrived. A pair of blue sea luo yechin earrings. A blue sky white jade ivory bracelet. The dowry of the Jia family is extremely luxurious, a full box, which shocked the Cheng family and those around them who came to observe the ceremony. This was decided by Jia's mother, for the sake of the superficial face of the Jia family. After all, in order to maintain their dignity, the Jia family was able to even handle the death of their servants, and as for Qin Keqing's funeral, it was extremely luxurious. No wonder so many businesses can squander it all, ultimately leading to being robbed of their homes. Jia Xuan thought of Qin Keqing's incident and harbored resentment in her heart. This is Kyoto, and if the Jia family dares to hold Qin Keqing's funeral like that, isn't it just seeking death? Just as I was thinking about it, a noisy voice rang out at the entrance of Cheng's mansion. Baby baby. So many babies. Oh my goodness. Jia Mansion is really a big family and a big business. It's fortunate to marry someone like this. The noise was like the voice of a village woman. It was the old lady of the Cheng family, the eldest mother, grandmother, of Mrs. Cheng Si. In fact, she is already a village woman and has never seen much of the world. I saw old Lady Cheng lying directly on top of the box filled with gold, silver, and jewelry, unable to put it down. It was only a few maids from the Cheng family who felt embarrassed that they dragged her down. Mr. Cheng is right. Zhou Rui couldn't help but laugh when he saw the appearance of Mrs. Cheng. However, he was not angry either, because Mrs. Cheng praised the Jia family, and even his servants felt a light on their faces. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4. A Lifetime Promise. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The carriage and horses of the Jia family's proposal were welcomed into the Cheng mansion. Jia Xuan also got out of the carriage and chatted with old Lady Cheng a few times, but old Lady Cheng was full of agreement. After all, Jia Xuan's appearance is quite good. At the age of just 15, he is already 1.8 meters tall and has a handsome appearance. After all, although the men of the Jia family are ordinary, their wives are all incredibly beautiful. With so many generations of genetic improvements, Jia Xuan's appearance is certainly amazing. After looking around, Jia Xuan did not notice the figures of Cheng Si and Xiao Yuanyi. It must be that they were still on their way back to Kyoto. As for Lady Cheng Si, Jia Xuan also didn't see her. After all, this is just a proposal, not a marriage, and now it's against the rules for women to meet people. Mr. Cheng, I wonder what the fourth lady thinks. Jia Xuan asked. Agreed, Mrs. Cheng naturally agreed. My family, Nian Niao, is willing. Mrs. Cheng said with a joyful expression on her face. Gushi on the side also agreed with a few words. In fact, Mrs. Cheng's vision was short-sighted, only seeing the gold, silver, and jewelry, and she couldn't bear to give up, but Gushi had ulterior motives. He heard that the illegitimate son of the Jia family was a weak and sickly person, and wanted to quickly marry Lady Cheng Si to Jia Xuan, a lowly illegitimate son, while Cheng Si had not yet returned. She didn't believe that Lady Cheng would be better off when she arrived at the Jia mansion. In the past, Gushi used to use the name of ghosts and gods to create mysteries and force Cheng Si and his wife to leave behind a trace. Now, he has come up with a scheme that can be said to be extremely vicious. But it happened to match Jia Xuan's marriage. Did she agree? Jia Xuan raised her eyebrows, thinking for a moment that it was probably because Mrs. Cheng couldn't stay in this house anymore, and she wanted to retaliate against her two parents who had not yet arrived home. It's not that Lady Cheng has a strong sense of revenge. In fact, if it weren't for her holding grudges like this, she wouldn't have been able to survive until now. That's great, then let's schedule the wedding tomorrow. What do the Cheng family think? The date for guarding the border has been set, and the day after tomorrow, Jia Xuan hurriedly went to the army and spoke up directly. And Mrs. Cheng's eyes were all on the jewelry. She didn't even hear the question clearly and even agreed. Gushi was even more overjoyed. She was eager to quickly take advantage of Cheng Si's absence to arrange a marriage. Although Jia Xuan is an illegitimate son, she is still from the Jia family. As long as the marriage is arranged and the dowry is accepted, even if Cheng Si returns, it will be of no use. With Cheng Si as a newly promoted martial artist, he cannot withdraw from the Jia family at all. With the push of Mrs. Cheng and Mr. Gu, this marriage was quickly settled, and it will be tomorrow's wedding. Is it rushed? Very hasty. But Cheng Jiaming's troublemakers are currently not at home, and this matter is so confusing that these two female relatives have facilitated it. As for the servants sent by the Jia family, neither Gu nor old Lady Cheng cared in their opinion. It's enough for Jia Xuan to come. Afterwards, Jia Xuan casually found a reason for Zhou Rui to visit Ronggua Mansion first, while she stayed at the Cheng family for a while before returning to Ronggua Mansion. The servants quickly left, and Jia Xuan herself and Mrs. Cheng, who was happily looking at jewelry, said a word before strolling around Cheng's mansion. Jia Xuan knows Niao Niao's personality. Come by yourself today. Niao Niao will definitely not stay peacefully in the room. She will come out 100% to see herself. In no time, Jia Xuan saw Lady Cheng Si looking from a distance in the yard. Sure enough, she is as tender as water, delicate and pitiful. She looks like a little bird clinging to people, but her eyes are full of cunning. There was also a little maid beside Niao Niao, who could be considered her only friend. Many bad things were done by the little maid Lianfang with her help. Mrs. Cheng realized that she had been seen by Jia Xuan, so she quickly turned around and ran away in a panic. But Jia Xuan's figure flashed and appeared in front of Lady Cheng Si, blocking her path. "I have something to ask you." Jia Xuan spoke up. "What? Do you really want to marry me?" "Yes. In order to retaliate against your parents. If that's the case, I can ask the Jia family to withdraw." Jia Xuan said seriously. Mrs. Cheng's voice was extremely soft and tender, making people feel particularly pitiful. Half of it, before Niao Niao, she lived at a farmer's house. If it weren't for your engagement, Niao Niao might have died of illness. Since childhood, no one has loved Niao Niao. Aunt and Uncle Go have been very good to Niao Niao in recent days. Niao Niao likes her very much, but she knows this is the reason for her engagement. And, Niao Niao wants to have her husband's love. As she spoke, Mrs. Cheng's eyes turned red. She had never said these words to the maid in the lotus room, but today she spoke to Jia Xuan for some reason, as if there was a kind of magic in Jia Xuan's body. In fact, Jia Xuan secretly used her great master's cultivation to listen to Niao Niao's truth. Now Jia Xuan understands, Niao Niao lacks love too much. Since childhood, without the company of her parents, she was bullied by children, and the Go family who took care of her did not even invite her husband in order to teach her bad behavior. They even sent her to the farmers and let her fend for herself, poor Mrs. Cheng Si. Jia Xuan sighed in her heart. How similar is Niao Niao's experience to his illegitimate son. Jia Xuan couldn't help but feel a hint of sympathy and pity in her heart, and then said, "After getting married, I will go to the 9 border garrison. At that time, I won't be able to bring my female relatives. You can only stay alone in the Jia mansion. Are you still willing to marry? Will you protect Niao Niao when you come back? Niao Niao doesn't want to be bullied. I will protect you for a lifetime. Will that love Niao Niao?" "Yes." "Then Niao Niao will marry you, waiting for you to return from guarding the border. It's a deal." Jia Xuan stared into Mrs. Cheng's eyes and nodded solemnly. This can be considered a promise. Afterwards, a few servants came to the backyard for daily cleaning. Jia Xuan was afraid of being bumped into and damaging the reputation of Mrs. Cheng, so she disappeared directly into the original place. "What about people?" Mrs. Cheng's beautiful eyes widened slightly, and her pretty face was filled with adorable doubts. Lianfang said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I guess you've left. It seems that your future husband is not easy." Although Lianfang is a maid, she also knows that her strength, which comes and goes without a trace, is not something that ordinary people can possess. "Oh, my goodness." Mrs. Cheng's pretty face turned slightly red, and it was only then that she remembered when Lianfang was also by her side when she had just said those words, "Don't say anything." Niao Niao patted the lotus room and quickly ran towards her own boudoir, her face full of shyness. After the curling, some people also feel pain. Mrs. Cheng looked in the direction of Jia's mansion and murmured to herself. "Father and mother, they don't hurt her. She almost starved to death in the mountains, and neither of them knows." She was also aware of the prejudices of Gusher and old Lady Cheng. From childhood to adulthood, Mrs. Cheng grew up in a loveless environment relying on her own strength. Now, marry into the Jia mansion, and when Jia Xuan returns from guarding the border, she will be loved by someone. Still a lifelong promise. She is finally going to be loved. For a moment, Lady Cheng shed 2 tears. This strong girl who lacks love is filled with longing in her heart. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. For sisters almost angered to death, father and mother. You are listening at novel.Audio. In the afternoon, Cheng Shi rushed to Kyoto and went to the imperial city to report. Upon learning that Cheng Shi was not going home to see her first, but rather going to the imperial city, Niao became even more certain that she agreed to the marriage. After Cheng Shi and others came out of the imperial city, they returned to the Cheng mansion and were shocked when they learned about Niao's marriage. Xiao Yuani was even more furious. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Why did you make decisions about your marriage without permission? Cheng Shi was furious and pointed at old Prince Cheng to vent his dissatisfaction. Although he was in the military, they always remembered his daughter who had not been with them since childhood. As soon as I returned, I learned that my daughter had already been engaged and would get married tomorrow. How could I not be angry? Moreover, the other party is still an illegitimate son of the Jia family. Cheng Shi and Xiao Yuani are both smart people who know what the Jia family is. That's a tiger's den and wolf's nest. Woo-woo. When my son comes back, he beats and scolds his mother. I won't live anymore, I won't live anymore. Old Lady Cheng immediately started playing pranks, pretending to be mentally ill and suffering from lung disease, and collapsed on the ground. Cheng Shi and the others were also helpless. Gushi stepped forward and said, Lady C, son.In.Law, it was agreed by Niao herself. Now that the dowry of the Jia family has been accepted, it cannot be returned. Mrs. Cheng also got up and agreed, yes, the dowry of the Jia family has been accepted. It's a big box of gold, silver, and jewelry. Your mother has never seen so many good treasures in her life. Cheng lost his temper and was so angry that he couldn't speak. However, he also knew about the personalities of old Lady Cheng and Gushi, so he decided to go directly to Niao's house to find her. Xiao Yuani followed closely behind. Upon learning that her parents had returned, Niao was afraid of being punished and hid under the covers pretending to be sick. As a result, Xiao Yuani saw through her and became even more angry. When it comes to marriage, Niao remains silent. Careful of knowledge, unable to recognize a single word. Niao. How did you become like this? I thought my parents were not by your side, and that you could grow up well, understand some principles, and be knowledgeable and reasonable. But now why did you agree to the Jia family's marriage? Okay, regarding matchmakers and parents' words, Cheng Shaoshang, why are you so ignorant? Xiao Yuani pointed at her curly nose and cursed loudly, trembling with anger. Sigh. Xiao Yuani sighed again and said, Jia Xuan, the illegitimate son of the Jia family, if you don't become a scholar or a martial artist, you're no different from a useless person. Niao is just going to the fire pit, and if you can't help it, you have to find a way. At this moment, the figure of Jia Xuan flashed through Niao's mind, who had been full of grievances and dared not speak. She didn't know where the courage came from, invented all her grievances, pitifully saying, Father and mother, you said Niao is not sensible, but you don't know that Niao has not been taught by a teacher for the past 15 years. You say that Niao doesn't know how to read and understand, but you know that Niao can't even eat enough. You said Niao agreed to the marriage, but that's because Niao has no one to love. Only by finding a husband can someone love her. You don't know anything, you don't know anything. Niao is starving to death. You are still heading towards the imperial city and enjoying the joy of victory. Mrs. Cheng's pear blossoms bring rain. Xiao Yuani was stunned, feeling a surge of anger, wanting to say something, but unable to speak. Cheng Shi sighed and said, the child can still be taught. I won't mention this matter for now. The key now is how to get rid of Niao's marriage. The other party is from the Jia family. Niao is about to get married, so parents don't have to worry about getting married. Niao won't get married. Madam Cheng said firmly. You. Xiao Yuani became angry and said with hatred, Niao, why are you so ignorant? Do you know that Jia Mansion is like a tiger's den and wolf's nest, located on the tip of the wind and waves? It doesn't matter if you die then, I'm afraid you'll implicate the Qing family. In fact, Xiao Yuanyi was very clever and could probably guess the fate of the old emperor if he died in the Jia family. She also cares about her daughter Niao Niao very much, she's just too impatient and tough, so what she says doesn't mean that anymore. Niao Niao was stunned when she heard that it didn't matter if she died, fearing to implicate the Qing family. Cheng Shi also repeatedly winked at Xiao Yuanyi, indicating that she was saying too much. Xiao Yuanyi regretted her mistake a bit, but her mother's arrogance made it impossible for her to apologize. She just stood beside her with a cold face. After a moment, Niao Niao squeezed out a smile and whispered, "Mother, he will protect me. He promised me. After returning from the border defense, he will protect me for a lifetime." Xiao Yuanyi originally regretted her slip of tongue, but upon hearing this, she became even more furious. "What does he use to protect you? He's just a commoner of the Jia family. He has been bullied and raised since childhood. If he's not a civil servant, then he can become a martial artist. What's the difference between him and a useless person? Jia Xuan, what should he do to protect you? When he returns from the border defense, to put it simply, you know how dangerous the border defense is. Even the illegitimate sons of the 4 kings and 8 princes families will die 90% in the border defense. He is a weak and useless person who will undoubtedly die. You will have to guard him for a lifetime and live a widowed life. The women in the Jia family's harem will bully you for a lifetime. Even a maid or servant will bully you." Xiao Yuanyi angrily explained the pros and cons to Mrs. Cheng Si. But Mrs. Cheng only had one sentence. "I believe in him." In one sentence, angry Xiao Yuanyi's body softened and she fainted. Cheng Shi quickly helped Xiao Yuanyi up, causing chaos in the Qing family. Niao Niao was at a loss, hiding under the blanket and crying. "When my parents come back, they blame her. When you come back, scold her, she can't read, doesn't understand etiquette, it's not her fault." She is also very aggrieved. Ultimately, Cheng Shi and Xiao Yuanyi had no choice but to join hands and go to the imperial city, hoping to use their own merits to request that the old emperor speak out and withdraw their marriage. In this case, although he offended the Jia family, with the emperor's mercy, he could protect Niao Niao and the Qing family, and the Jia family would not retaliate so harshly. After all, in their view, marrying an illegitimate son of the Jia family who was about to go to defend the border was an inevitable move, and even if she didn't die, she would have a miserable life. As a result, after hearing about this matter, the old emperor did not agree to the request of Cheng Shi and his wife. Instead, he replaced Jia Xian's border defense duties with a nominally safer but actually more dangerous task of clearing bandits. Seeing no hope of getting divorced, Xiao Yuanyi and Cheng Shi can only accept this result. "Well, Yuanyi, even the Holy One is not in charge, so we cannot withdraw from the Jia family." Cheng Shi sighed and said. "If they voluntarily withdraw from their marriage, it would be like losing face to the Jia family. When the Jia family retaliates, the Qing family cannot afford it. If the emperor had spoken, the Jia family would not have been so crazily seeking revenge. Unfortunately, the Holy One did not agree to their demands, and even refused to exchange military achievements." Xiao Yuanyi had no choice but to hate and say, "It's better to guard the border than to eliminate banditry." The two of them, who were also considered clever, were actually misled by their intelligence. No one expected the old emperor to speak up and replace Jia Xian's border defense responsibilities with eliminating bandits. Behind the bandits, there stands a figure in the court who is well versed in the world. Who dares to clear the payment? The emperor asked the Jia family to clear the bandits raised by powerful officials such as the 4 Wangs and 8 princes. It's really a clever plan. Shu, the palace. P.S. There are saved manuscripts, please ask for the data. The number of V in the red chamber is too small, and without data, I really can't persist. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. The Day of Great Marriage. You are listening at novel.full.audio. The banditry in the Zhou dynasty was not very rampant, otherwise it would have been exposed long ago. Those powerful bandits are basically obedient to people, acting according to rules, only intercepting some disobedient court officials or disobedient business tycoons. It can be said that, these bandits were raised by important figures in the court, such as those in the 4 Wangs and 8 mansions, and even by some figures who were even more terrifying than those in the 4 Wangs and 8 mansions. The old emperor has always wanted to eliminate banditry and eliminate the influence of the founding nobles for the next emperor, but there has never been a suitable reason. Now Qing Shi and Xiao Yuanyi came knocking on the door, which can be said to have given the old emperor a divine opportunity. If Jia Xuan can succeed, that would naturally be a good thing. If Jia Xuan dies, the old emperor had even more reason to order the imperial army to suppress bandits. I have to say, although the old emperor was addicted to alchemy and immortality, his mind was still clear. The power that once controlled the court was still present, and he was not completely unconscious. Qing Shi and Xiao Yuanyi returned to the Qing family, feeling helpless in their hearts. Originally, Jia Xuan was stationed at the border, and they could still use their energy to prevent Jia Xuan from carrying out such a dangerous mission and protect her, but now Emperor Jia Xuan is going to clear the bandits, but they have no way out. Suppressing bandits, in their view, there is no doubt that Jia Xuan will die. Their curls, I'm going to be a widow now. If Jia Xuan dies, she will immediately give her all and take Niao Niao home. She cannot let him stay in the Jia mansion. Well, there's only one way at the moment. It was night, and both Xiao Yuanyi and Qing Shi shed a lot of tears. Mrs. Cheng's heart was also filled with things. Dong 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 dong, Mrs. Cheng stood up and knocked on the door of the couple's house, asking softly, "Father, will you come tomorrow?" "Tomorrow, it's the day of Mrs. Cheng's wedding." "Yes, Niao Niao, my father definitely will." Qing Shi held back his tears. "What about Mu?" Niao Niao continued to ask. "No way." Xiao Yuanyi let out a cold snort, clearly still emitting a wave of anger. I have to say, Xiao Yuanyi actually loves Niao Niao very much and wants to return all the love she has lacked over the years. However, due to her temperament and personality, she is very strict with Niao Niao, your mother's angry words. "Alright, go back to sleep quickly." With a regretful expression on her face, Niao Niao went back to her room to sleep. The next day, the entire imperial city is bustling with gongs and drums, and firecrackers are ringing in unison. The Jia family's grand wedding was extremely extravagant, with decorations everywhere. People were mostly sent to the homes of the 4 kings and 8 princes. Jia Xuan rode a tall horse with a red flower on her chest, officially marrying Lady Cheng Si. Although Jia Xuan was just a commoner and hated by Jia Shi, but marriage represents the face of the Jia family. Silver is poured in like flowing water, the most extravagant and luxurious, and the sound of firecrackers never stops. It seems that gunpowder has already appeared this week. There is also paper in Daiyu. Among the 4 great inventions, only the compass and printing are left. However, papermaking still has great potential for improvement. As the groom's official, Jia Xuan was actually thinking about these things. Soon, a group of carriages and horses arrived at Qing Mansion, and Lady Cheng Si, wearing a red hat, was taken onto the carriage and horse turned back and forth, heading back towards Ronggua Mansion. As for Qing Shi and his family, they have long been taken to the Jia Mansion. A grand wedding, it is also naturally held in Jia Mansion. The wedding procession quickly returned to Ronggua Mansion, passing smoothly without any obstacles. Countless high-ranking officials and dignitaries entered and exited Ronggua Mansion, being invited. The governor of the capital, Prince Teng Ouyang Su, the top scorer of the new Zhou dynasty, has arrived. Gu Tinji from the Marquis' mansion in Ningyuan has arrived. The servants shouted and countless congratulatory gifts were sent to the Jia family. Of course, these congratulatory gifts were not given to Jia Xuan, the groom's official, nor did they fall into her hands. It is estimated that they will soon be squandered by Jiao Mu and others. The wedding ceremony is tedious and dense. Jia Xuan can only handle it one by one. It took a while before the actual wedding ceremony. Jia Xuan, dressed in Lang's official robe, led the fourth wife Cheng to the front of Rongxi Hall. In front of her, there were Cheng Lost, Jia Shi and other elders, Lin Daiyu, Jia Baoyu, Shui Baochai and other children behind, as well as Yingying Yanyan's servant girls, who looked in curiously. A bow to the high hall. 2 visits to heaven and earth, 3 bows. Fortunately, during the wedding ceremony, the Zhou did not need to kneel and bow to the high hall, but only bowed, otherwise Jia Xuan would cause trouble. Cheng Shi's eyes turned slightly red as he looked at the curly curl in front of him wearing a red cap, and his heart was filled with thoughts. And next to Cheng Shi, the seat is empty as a mother. Xiao Yuani did not show up after bowing to the high hall of heaven and earth. The couple should walk hand in hand out of the Rongxi Hall and into the bridal chamber, but just as he was about to leave Rongxi Hall, Niao Niao gently took off her hood and glanced back, revealing her delicate and pitiful face, as if it were a fairy with a delicate and pitiful temperament. She really didn't come. Niao Niao was completely disappointed. Jia Xuan quickly covered Niao Niao's head, causing a commotion among the crowd. Cheng Shi quickly stood up and apologized to Jia Mu, old Tai Jun. Niao Niao has not been by my side since childhood and has neglected discipline. Please do not blame me. Jia Mu waved her hand without paying attention, her face full of smiles. Anyway, today is a big day for the Jia family. No etiquette. But it's absolutely beautiful. Jia Hui scolded first, and then added in his heart. Cheng Shi apologized bitterly, but received no response and could only give up. Firecrackers set off to bid farewell to the newlyweds entering the bridal chamber. Of course, for the sake of dignity, the Jia family specially prepared a new house and gave it to Jia Xuan. You can't enter the bridal chamber in the overgrown courtyard before, with so many guests watching. This room has a spacious courtyard, which is the place where Lai Mama used to live. Jia Xuan walked into the bridal chamber with Lady Cheng Si, lightly patted her shoulder, and then said, "Wait for me." After finishing speaking, Jia Xuan went out. According to the rules, he had to continue entertaining guests until he could unveil the red veil at night. The wedding is quite festive. Although Jia Xuan is an illegitimate son, he is still a member of the Jia family, and all the guests who come here have given him face and have not caused any trouble. In a separate yard, the children gathered together to form several tables. Lin Daiyu, Shui Baochai, Shi Shangyun and others happily composed poetry in pairs, while several maids including Qingwen Shiren were also allowed to dine at the table. Jia Baoyu was stunned and lost in thought. "What's wrong, second master Bao? It's your turn to write a poem. Why don't the poem title be Life's Great Joy Day? Let me test and teach you." Shui Baochai said. "Ah. Ao, good." Jia Baoyu regained his senses and quickly responded, but his mind was filled with the fairy face that Lady Cheng had just revealed. To compare the graceful appearance, Baoyu felt that Daiyu was not as good as her, Baochai was not as good as her, Shiren was not as good as her, Qingwen was not as good as her, and his thoughts were piercing and scratching in his heart. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. General Jia Xuan of the Banditry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mrs. Cheng's beauty can be said to have amazed everyone, especially with that delicate and pitiful temperament. Countless men have a primitive impulse. At first, everyone thought that Jia Xuan was just a married commoner. Now seeing Jia Xuan's unparalleled beauty, everyone envies her. The wedding day passed quickly, and the Jia family didn't know how many gifts they had received, but they had nothing to do with Jia Xuan. It's night, on the night of wedding candles and flowers. Jia Xuan took off Lady Cheng's red cap and looked at the pitiful beauty in front of her, feeling a hint of pity in her heart. After today, Lady Cheng will be his legitimate wife. Niao niao, go to sleep. Okay. The candle blew out, a cloud and rain fell, and there was nothing to say all night. I have no idea what happened that night, but I only know that the next day, Niao Niao gained some feminine charm, as if she had matured quite a bit. Sign in. Congratulations, you have obtained Master Level Shadow Guard Death Warrior X1 upon check.In. He is a martyr again. Jia Xuan raised her eyebrows, and the one who signed in yesterday was also a Death Warrior Shadow Guard. These Shadow Guard Death Warriors all come from an existence called the Shadow Corps, which can be hidden in the shadows and cannot be detected by anyone. They are skilled spies and assassins. But now Jia Xuan doesn't need such a team on hand, so she might as well leave them all by Niao Niao's side and protect her in the Jia mansion. You know, Jia Shi and Jia Zhen are all hooligans who can climb the ashes, fooling around with their daughter.In.Law. Jia Baoyu is not bad either. He has to send someone to protect him if he wants to stay in Jia's house. Shadow Guard, it can be used to protect Niao Niao. With a Grandmaster level Shadow Guard by his side, the safety of Niao Niao can be said to be foolproof. You know, the Grandmaster is already the top expert in the Zhou dynasty, and the Grandmaster level characters are only one level lower than the Grandmaster. Protecting Niao Niao with such a master is enough to show Jia Xuan's importance to her. After all, she is her own woman. With the protection of a master-level warrior, it can be said that as long as Niao Niao doesn't go to the imperial palace, she can wander freely in this capital, just like in the Jia mansion. Quickly, the imperial decree of the old emperor reached the Jia family, appointing Jia Xuan as the general of bandits and ordering Jia Xuan to set off tomorrow, prepare 3,000 troops and horses on her own, and destroy the large bandit Tianlai fortress near Yangzhou. As soon as this edict was issued, many people began to sneer. The emperor did not give a single soldier, and asked the illegitimate son of the Jia family to prepare his own army and horses. Isn't this just a clear plan to send him to death? And the characters standing behind Tianlai fortress are not simple. Although everyone doesn't know who the main leader behind the Tianlai stronghold is, they each have their own speculations. The Tianlai fortress occupies the official road from Yangzhou to the capital, and all past merchants, as well as transactions such as suebi and rags, must pass through the hands of the Tianlai fortress. The old emperor once dispatched Gu Tinji, the second son of the Marquis mansion of Ningyuan, to suppress bandits in the Tianlai fortress. In the end, everything came to an end, and Gu Tinji almost died on the way. This shows how terrifying the Tianlai fortress is. The mastermind behind it is a powerful force in the current court. Almost everyone in the imperial city now feels that Jia Xuan will definitely die. After all, Jia Xuan is not Gu Tinji, he is just an illegitimate son of the Rongua mansion, and if he doesn't become a martial artist, he will. Gu Tinji lost half of his life. Why can Jia Xuan survive? Even if he doesn't die in Tianlai's stronghold, he will still die in another place. But Jia Xuan didn't care, he gladly accepted the order. On the contrary, I feel a bit lucky. The emperor asked me to prepare 3,000 military horses, which would be perfect for summoning the Snow Dragon Cavalry. Husband, is it safer to suppress bandits than to defend the border and come back faster? Niao Niao blinked her eyes curiously and asked. That's right, it takes 3 years to defend the border before returning home. As for suppressing bandits, my husband will be back in less than a month. Jia Xuan rubbed her curly little head and said, and when you come back, your husband will have an official position and real power. No one can bully you then. That Niao Niao is waiting for her husband to come back. Niao Niao said obediently. She, who lacked love since childhood, was afraid of losing it, so in front of Jia Xuan, she was very obedient and did not show any signs of resentment. Okay, don't worry. Jia Xuan nodded. On weekdays, the Jia family treats their female relatives fairly well, and at this critical moment, I am a general appointed by the Holy Emperor to suppress bandits. As long as I don't die, the Jia family won't do anything too unsightly, and there is no problem with my safety. Just be wary of other people's tricks, for example, Jia Shi and Jia Zhen, the two lecherons, or some insidious servants. Quickly, Jia Xuan took Niao Niao to stroll around Rongua Mansion and Dogwan Garden, while introducing the situation of the Qing family to Lady Cheng Si. Afterwards, she asked Lady Cheng Si to go see Jia's mother and pay her respects. It is the responsibility of Lady Jia to lead Lady Cheng to recognize people. Jia Xuan walked to her abandoned courtyard and whispered, "Shadow guard." Whoosh, two black-clothed people with eerie breath and pure black color, as if they were three-dimensional shadows, walked out from the shade of the tree. They are both women, and their aura is at the level of a master. And being able to blend into shadows, even hiding in human shadows, tracking, obtaining intelligence, and so on, is a very powerful shadow guard. You too, protect Niao Niao well from now on, and you must remain steadfast. Jia Xuan said in a deep voice. Yes, young master. Two shadow guards knelt down on one knee, their eyes filled with fanatical loyalty. This is the benefit of system summoning. The characters summoned upon check.In all have perfect backgrounds and will not be doubted. At the same time, they are 100% loyal to Jia Xuan. If someone uses some sinister tactics against Niao Niao, it doesn't matter if you cause harm to her. I don't want Niao Niao to be harmed by anyone else. Jia Xuan's tone was extremely serious, and her eyes were full of murderous intent. If Jia Shi wants to climb the ashes, or Jia Zhen from Ningguofu, or someone else has an idea about curling, he doesn't mind killing him directly. Yes, young master. Go ahead. Jia Xuan waved her hand, and the two shadow guards instantly transformed into two shadows, merging into the nearby shadows. From today on, even if it's taking a shower or going to the bathroom, these two shadow guards will follow. Anyway, they are all women, so there's no need to avoid suspicion. Of course, the summoned shadow guard is a woman, which Jia Xuan obtained after discussing with the system. If he is willing, he can also replace all University Dragon Cavalry with women, but his combat power will be slightly reduced, so there is no need for that. Next, Jia Xuan looked at how Niao Niao was doing. I found that Niao Niao and the other female relatives of Rongua Mansion got along quite well, especially Jia Mu, who really liked Niao Niao. Speaking of which, Niao Niao's temperament is pitiful to anyone who sees it. Like Lin Daiyu, it is pitiful, but Niao Niao is more cunning than Lin Daiyu, with a touch of cuteness in her pitiful demeanor. Jia Mu's heart is about to melt. Of course, if Niao Niao's position in Jia Mu's heart is said to be inferior to that of Lin Daiyu. After all, Lin Daiyu is Jia Mu's blood relative, while Niao Niao is not. Afterwards, Jia Mu arranged several maids for Niao Niao, and on the surface, everyone got along quite well. And secretly, Jia Shi's face darkened. Every time he thought of Jia Xuan's defiance, he became very angry. After thinking of Mrs. Cheng's beauty, he became extremely greedy. Evil son, unfilial son, then let you die halfway. Jia Shi smiled viciously. Although he did not hold a high official position, it was very simple for Jia Xuan to quietly die on the road thanks to the network accumulated by the Jia family ancestors. When Jia Xuan dies, isn't Mrs. Cheng still letting him play with her? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Yangzhou Sutan'er. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Jia Xuan bid farewell to Niao Niao and went to the military camp to collect her warhorses and armor, and then left the imperial city. However, it is worth mentioning that, Jia Xuan, the general who fought against bandits, was assigned to Gu Yankai, who was the father of the previous general, Gu Tinji. It is obvious that the old emperor was dividing and queuing up various forces in the court, using the marriage of Jia Xuan and Lady Cheng Si to complete his own plan. It has to be said that the old emperor's methods are still very advanced. Gu Yankai kept sending Jia Xuan outside the city and handed her a map, saying, "Jia Xuan, this is a map of Tianlei village and a roster of various famous bandits under Fang Lei's command." Jia Xuan took the map and gratefully said, "Thank you, Marquis. It's okay, it's just a small matter. General and Niu Jizong were both staff members, so it's only right to take care of you." Gu Yan arched his hand and said, "If you want to deploy troops, you can go to Beiding. They are all elite soldiers under my command. Pay attention to safety and be careful not to die on the way. Died halfway, it's natural to be killed by one's own people." Jia Xuan raised her eyebrows and asked, "Marquis, there is something unknown about my nephew. Who is behind Tianlei's stronghold?" "I don't know, but it's even stronger than the 4 Wangs and 8 princes. You can guess for yourself." Lord Gu smiled. Jia Xuan nodded, thanked Gu Yankai again, and then galloped towards Yangzhou. The 4 kings and 8 nobles are all military officials who opened the court, and their power is so great that it is not an exaggeration to say that they have immense power. But there are also many who have more power in the court than the 4 kings and 8 nobles. Tai Shi, Qin Wuxiang, Chang Princess, the 2 princes. Or the old emperor himself, it's all possible. Jia Xuan shook her head and stopped thinking about it. His current goal is only one. To pacify the Tianlei fortress, to report and receive rewards, and to have achievements in the future, which can be considered as a complete foothold in this world. Regardless of who raised the bandits, Jia Xuan doesn't care. He only seeks to be crowned as a king and worshipped as a prime minister, living a carefree life. What kind of court power scheme? He believes that the strength of the great master is enough to sweep everything, and in fact, it is indeed so. Jia Xuan left the capital 80 miles away and chose to summon the Snow Dragon Cavalry. In a moment, 3,000 Snow Dragon Cavalry appeared out of thin air, all dressed in light armor, and even war horses were all dressed in armor. They were all solemn and their movements were as if they were one. This is a teacher with strict military discipline. Its combat power is comparable to a torrent of steel. In today's world, there is probably no cavalry that can match the Snow Dragon Cavalry. I've seen the young master before. Commander Yuan Erzong immediately bowed to Jia Xuan. Go to Yangzhou. Under Jia Xuan's command, he galloped on horseback, with 3,000 Snow Dragon Cavalry quietly following behind without any unnecessary movements. Even 3,000 people are like machines carved from a mold, with neat and uniform movements. Tianlei Fortress, with a prominent leader named Fang Lei, had 8 camps under his command and nearly 10,000 bandits. There were also brave commanders such as Lu Donghua, Bao Wenhan, and Chen Fan. Jia Xuan looked at the flower list in her hand, and a strange color flashed in her eyes. It seems that, this is a world of ancient puppet fusion. It's really not easy. So, would there be a Su family cloth shop in Yangzhou? Is Qin, the current court official, currently living in seclusion in Yangzhou? And, if I remember correctly, Lin Daiyu's father, Lin Ruhai, is now working as a salt inspector in Yangzhou. Interesting. About 3 days later, Jia Xuan arrived outside the city of Yangzhou and ordered 3,000 Snow Dragon Cavalry to camp outside the city. She led Yuan Er into Yangzhou. After presenting the official letter, the governor of Yangzhou personally received Jia Xuan and told her that their Yangzhou army had gone to eliminate the Tianlei fortress, leaving Jia Xuan in Yangzhou city and waiting for him to take credit. Jia Xuan did not agree. Afterwards, Jia Xuan took Yuan Er and strolled around Yangzhou city, and finally entered the Su family's cloth shop. In Yangzhou city, there were only 2 large-scale cloth shops. One was Su's cloth shop and the other was Wu's cloth shop. Jia Xuan understood in her heart that it was probably the drama she had thought of. As expected, after entering the Su branch, Jia Xuan saw a woman who was born to be extremely charming and beautiful, teaching her servants how to sell. Her ideas were very advanced. If Jia Xuan guessed correctly, this should be Sutan'er. Upon seeing Jia Xuan and Sutan'er come in, Sutan'er immediately welcomed them with extraordinary demeanor, not just ordinary children. "Young master, I wonder what kind of cloth you need. Su's cloth shop has." Sutan'er enthusiastically introduced Jia Xuan. But before she could say anything, Jia Xuan interrupted, "Muyun Sha, 10 horses." The so-called Muyun yarn is a type of fabric researched by Sutan'er, which can change colors under sunlight, like the beautiful sunset clouds. Jia Xuan wanted to buy some and go back to make some clothes for Niao Niao. Because on weekdays, Niao Niao was targeted by Gusher, and the clothes she wore were very simple. "Okay, young master, please wait a moment." Quickly, Mu Yunsha was brought up, and Jia Xuan paid and turned around to leave. But as I was about to leave, I suddenly remembered something. Then he turned his head and asked, "I wonder if Miss Sutan'er is married or not." "Ah. Not yet. Unmarried." Sutan'er was asked for a moment and then answered with some embarrassment. "Okay, thank you very much, Mississippi." Upon hearing this answer, Jia Xuan furrowed her brows and left with Sutan'er. "Miss, did the young master just show some interest to you?" A maid joked. Sutan'er spat and said, "Don't speak recklessly. Did you check it out?" Sutan'er. Jia Xuan asked. Sutan'er and his companions flickered back to Jia Xuan's side and reported, "Young master, Sutan'er is the only daughter of the second wife of the Su family's cloth shop. She has been fond of weaving since childhood and is now 15 years old. She has just reached the age of her hair. She once had a marriage engagement with Prince Ning of the Ning family, but he died unexpectedly and the engagement was terminated." How long has the young master of the Ning family been dead?" "It's been 3 years now." Jia Xuan nodded. It seemed that although this world was a fusion of ancient dolls, not everyone appeared in this world, such as Sutan'er's original wife, the young master of the Ning family. This is quite good, so as not to have a competitor who is also a time traveler. "Young master, there's one more thing." "What's up?" The Tianlai fortress launched a surprise attack on Linqing. Now Linqing has been breached, and Fang Lei and others have destroyed the gunpowder depot inside Linqing. All the bandits in Tianlai fortress are now located within Linqing. Is this statement true? Jia Xuan stood up abruptly, her eyes shining brightly. This information is true. Okay, go to Linqing immediately and destroy Tianlai fortress. Jia Xuan immediately set off, got on his horse, and rushed to the outside of the city, leading the Snow Dragon Cavalry to Linqing. At the same time, the incident of Fang Lei destroying the gunpowder depot also gave Jia Xuan more analysis of the power within the court. Now the border of Great Zhou is unstable, with Tatars, Xiongnu, Turks, and even South Vietnam constantly invading the border. Great Zhou stubbornly resists, and has just experienced a great victory by Cheng Si, with a surge in momentum. If de Zhou were to bring out his secret weapon, gunpowder at this time, he would be able to turn the tide and defeat all those who dared to invade the border country. Gunpowder. There are 7 warehouses for Linqing gunpowder, and based on current productivity, it wouldn't be possible to produce so much in just 3 to 5 years. No wonder the old emperor likes to refine pills. It turns out he's doing these things behind the scenes. Jia Xuan pondered. The gunpowder in Linqing was secretly produced by the old emperor and accumulated over 3 to 5 years, in order to drive out foreign tribes with gunpowder and achieve complete victory for the Zhou dynasty. But some people in the court do not want the Zhou to win. After all, if the Great Zhou failed, they would have to offer New Year's coins, New Year's cloth, and so on to Xiongnu, Tatars, Dajin, Turkic and other countries every year. The profits here can make some people windfall. That's why, the fact is indeed so, the old emperor who received the news now was furious and his heart was filled with despair. Without gunpowder, what does Daiyu use to repel the Xiongnu and Tatars? Is it difficult to hope for a divine general like Qubing to appear in Daiyu? Don't dream anymore. How could it be? Such a level of divine general is rare even in the chaotic 500 years. Unless God blesses Zhou, how could such a divine general appear? Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. The Yangzhou army who killed Virtuous and brave of merit. You are listening at novel.Audio. I don't think so. Jia Xuan shook her head. 3,000 Snow Dragon riders advanced through the mountains and forests, and arrived at Linqing in about 3 hours. Now all the gates of Linqing have been closed, and everywhere are flags of bandits and thunder. Countless bandits are standing on the city wall to let out the wind. The Yangzhou army consists of about 10,000 people and has been stationed outside the city, under the command of a commander named Qin Hai. As for the villages outside Linen City, they are everywhere withered and corpses are everywhere. It is late autumn, and the rustling of fallen trees adds a touch of desolation. Young master, over a dozen villages ahead have been slaughtered, and now there are less than 100 survivors gathered in Zhangjiazhuang. A Snow Dragon rider returned after exploring the road and reported. Even the heartless Snow Dragon Cavalry couldn't bear to think of the scene just now, everywhere ruins and limbs are broken, even children are not spared. The Qingxi River is filled with rotten corpses and a bright red color. Every household has been swept away, and all food has been looted. Jia Xuan listened to her subordinates' reports and could already imagine the tragic situation in ancient times. Bandits plundered, but it was not about robbing money and saving lives. Those bandits are all a group of animals, and even 80% of them are capable of cooking and eating live people. Let's go take a look at Zhangjiazhuang. Jia Xuan's face was solemn. A village not far away is Zhangjiazhuang. In Zhangjiazhuang, more than 90 surviving people gather here and struggle to survive on their stored surplus food. Wait a minute. Jia Xuan called a halt to the team. A few hundred meters ahead is Zhangjiazhuang. However, the current situation is quite strange. An old woman holding a child knelt on the ground and cried loudly, while a rather delicate woman was dragged and tied to a warhorse by a group of men wearing red armor. No matter how much the old woman pleads, it's useless. There are probably more than 10 of those soldiers. What a Yangzhou army! Jia Xuan squinted her eyes and gave an order to Commander Sutan'er, kill them all. With a single command, step by step, Sutan'er rushed forward and waved his long spear, killing all the red-armored Yangzhou soldiers in just a few breaths, leaving no survivors. Jia Xuan and the heavy Snow Dragon Cavalry behind her slowly drove towards. Master Jun, please spare us. We really don't have any food left. Bandits come and rob, you come and rob again, we really don't have any food left. Woo-woo. The old woman cried loudly, and the remaining villagers were also in despair. Jia Xuan dismounted and sent the bound delicate woman back to the old woman's side, then Jia Xuan supported the old woman and asked, "Don't worry, old woman. We are not the Yangzhou army. What has happened these past few days? Tell me." The old woman trembled and said, "Are you really not the military lords of Yangzhou?" Jia Xuan took out the emperor's imperial edict and explained, "This is the current imperial edict, ordering Jia to come and suppress bandits. Everyone can speak with me." How can the common people understand the edict? But everyone felt that the precious and precious books were exceptionally wealthy, coupled with so many heavenly fears and battles. Many people knelt down on the ground, crying loudly. "General, help us. General. Their Yangzhou army is not human. After the bandits robbed them, they robbed again. Not to mention, they killed even more ruthlessly than bandits. They're not human. They're even more vicious than bandits. Among the bandits, at least Lu Donghua doesn't know how to kill. These Yangzhou military lords are bloodthirsty, and my poor daughter was taken and raped by them for 3 days. General. Woo, if it weren't for you, my daughter.In.Law would probably have been robbed today. The little woman thanks the general, sobbing. The sound of sobbing, wailing, and sobbing, the villagers were crying about the tragedy they had experienced in the past few days. Jia Xuan squinted her eyes. Kill the good and take credit. What a Yangzhou army. Jia Xuan waved her hand and said, villagers, you are heading towards the northwest direction. There are many kind-hearted people from Yangzhou who are willing to be kind and generous. You can have enough to eat on the way. If you don't want to leave, then wait for Jia to kill all the bandits and bring you back to Yangzhou city. Thank you, General. Thank you. Jia Xuan changed her mind. Originally, he planned to capture Linen City on his own, regardless of the Yangzhou army, but now it seems that he needs to go to Yangzhou army. This kind of useless person who kills good deeds is not worthy of living. The Snow Dragon Cavalry was as fast as the wind and quietly appeared behind the Yangzhou military camp. When several Yangzhou soldiers who had drunk heavily came out to peace suddenly saw the Snow Dragon Cavalry, they were almost scared to death on the spot. For a moment, the Yangzhou army was like a formidable enemy, and the military camp was in chaos. A waste of lax military discipline. Commander Yuan Er couldn't help but curse and shout. Finally, the commander of the Yangzhou army, Qin Hai, walked out and was immediately startled and surprised to see Jia Xuan and the 3,000 Snow Dragon Cavalry behind him. Isn't it said that he is a commoner of the Jia family without a foundation? Where were so many elite cavalry recruited from? Qin Hai was uncertain in his heart, but he still said, it's General Jia Xuan. I have a decree from His Majesty that I will be responsible for all the military affairs of Tianlei Fortress. General Jia Xuan will also have to listen to my arrangements when he comes. Jia Xuan gave Qin Hai a cold glance and then clapped her hands. Dong dong dong, more than 10 heads of the red armored army were thrown by Jia Xuan in front of the military camp. What? Sleeping trough. That looks like Zhang Tinia's head. What situation? All the soldiers in Yangzhou were in an uproar. Because these dozen or so heads are their colleagues. Robbing civilians and killing good deeds are really good tactics. Commander Qin has brought out more and more ruthless soldiers. Jia Xuan's eyes were cold. Qin Tong frowned, but remained calm and said, do you have any evidence of killing Liang and taking credit? The evidence is conclusive. Someone. These people are all from that branch's Wu Li. The centurion killed me together. What kind of soldiers are these brought out? Commander Qin made a decisive decision and waved his hand to signal to his trusted guard. Next, a centurion was arrested and beheaded directly. I knew this bastard is usually quite greedy for work. Qin Tongling snorted coldly and said, if anyone dares to kill Liang and take credit, you will end up with him. All the soldiers trembled with cold cicadas. Jia Xuan watched Qin Tongling's thunderous tactics with great interest. General Jia Xuan, let your people camp. Follow me to the big tent. General Jia Xuan has arrived just in time, and we are worried about how to break through lynching. Commander Qin turned around and left, gesturing for Jia Xuan to follow. Jia Xuan gestured for Yuan Er to camp, and then followed Qin commander without saying a word. If he guessed correctly, the matter of killing Liang and taking credit is closely related to Commander Qin, and there is even a high probability that this guy instructed it. Even if it wasn't instructed by Qin Hai, there would definitely be this guy's tacit approval. Otherwise, why did Qin Hai use thunderous methods to slay the assassin, the centurion? I'm afraid the centurion might say something. Jia Xuan saw very clearly, and in the eyes of the decapitated centurion, there was a sense of confusion and resentment. It was obvious that she had a grudge against Qin Tongling. Jia Xuan wanted to see what kind of medicine was sold in the gourd of the Qin commander of Yangzhou army. Qin Ming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 10. The Qing Si, single spear breaks through the city gate. You are listening at novel.Audio. A large tent in the military. In addition to Qin Tongling, there are also 2 colonels and 7 or 8,000 commanders. Let me introduce you to General Jia Xuan, a special general bestowed by His Majesty, who carried 3,000 light cavalry. Commander Qin introduced. Everyone else looked at Jia Xuan with different colors in their eyes. Jia Xuan arched her hand and didn't say much. She sat quietly on the side, listening quietly. Quickly, the big tent began to study the method of siege. Originally, Jia Xuan wanted to share her own opinions, but what he didn't expect was that Qin commander and others had been fiercely competing to determine whether to attack the city. A colonel and 7 or 8,000 commanders insisted on attacking the city, while others stood on the side of Qin Tongling, saying they would hold their ground. No matter what happens, Qin Tongling remains steadfast in his actions. Qin commander. Now that the bandit Tianlai fortress is all gathering in Lincheng, it is a great opportunity for us to eliminate it in one fell swoop. Yes, Commander Qin, it was because of your inaction that the bandits blew up the gunpowder depot. If we had attacked the city earlier, such a thing wouldn't have happened. That's right. Everyone, every word you say, I have a deep resentment towards Commander Qin. Commander Qin, seeing that everyone had gone too far, angrily took out a decree and said, Your Majesty has ordered me to lead the entire situation. Do you have any objections? As soon as the edict is issued, the colonels and captains under his command will remain silent. Jia Xuan raised an eyebrow on the side, as if she understood the current situation. It was obvious that Commander Qin was the confidant of the old emperor, otherwise the old emperor would not have entrusted such a matter to him. However, it was obvious that Commander Qin, who had betrayed the old emperor, stood on the side of a prominent figure advocating for the payment of Suebuiha and had been suppressing the Yangzhou army, allowing Fang Lei to successfully destroy the gunpowder depot. Even, Qin Tongling also arranged for his subordinates to kill Liang and take credit. But now it seems that only the dozen or so people arranged by General Qin are responsible for killing the good and taking credit. The interior of the Yangzhou army is still very clean, and there is only General Qin, who is such a big worm. Jia Xuan pondered and said. At this moment, the colonel was suppressed by the imperial decree and indignant. He could only look at Jia Xuan and ask, General Jia Xuan, what do you think should be done? Everyone's gaze turned towards Jia Xuan. After all, they all knew that Jia Xuan had 3,000 light cavalry. Although cavalry was useless during the siege, once the city gate opened wide and cavalry entered, it was a one-sided massacre. The so-called bandits had no fighting power in front of armored cavalry. In addition, Jia Xuanrong, the young master of the imperial palace, was appointed by the emperor. Jia Xuan still holds a high weight in the hearts of everyone. Jia believes that the city should be attacked. If anyone surrounds without attacking and delays the fighter jet, they will be executed according to the law. Jia Xuan sneered. Do not attack the city. I will make the final decision. This is the decree. Qin Tong led the angry way. Cannot attack the city. We are not allowed to attack the city, but are you allowed to go down and plunder the people? Jia Xuan sneered. You bastard. This is a decree, if the decree is not allowed, it is not allowed. Where can the imperial edict say that siege is impossible? I see you are distorting the holy will and deceiving the upper and lower levels. You. Miso. The blade came out of her body, and Jia Xuan's knife was instantly covered in blood, while Commander Qin's head flew high, unable to close its eyes. The whole scene was shocked. The generals were all stunned and unable to speak. Qin Tongling died like this. As the commander of the Yangzhou army, when he saw bandits killing the people, he did not send troops to attack the city, but instead allowed the bandits to blow up the gunpowder depot, and even allowed his soldiers to kill Liang and take credit. He deserved to die. Jia Xuan's tone was extremely cold. You killed Commander Qin. Damn it. Another colonel standing on Qin Tongling's side exclaimed in surprise. Jia Xuan's face remained expressionless as she swung a knife. The captain's body was directly separated, with his head hanging high. Dong, the heads of Colonel and Commander Qin were thrown in the center of the tent. Jia Xuan said coldly, Jia is only killing thieves, and you don't need to deal with the siege. After speaking, Jia Xuan walked out of the tent and shouted loudly, Snow Dragon Cavalry, where is Sutan'er? The whole army will follow me to attack the city. Yes. A unanimous answer erupted from the Snow Dragon Cavalry, with a deafening momentum. Step by step, the sound of hooves sounded, and 3,000 Snow Dragon riders, all dressed in armor, wielding the Northern Liang sword, came from a distance and stood solemnly behind Jia Xuan. Follow me to conquer the enemy. Jia Xuan flipped over and mounted her horse, pointed the blade forward, and then galloped straight out. Behind her, 3,000 Snow Dragon Cavalry did not hesitate, followed with their horses and cavalry charging forward. The colonels and captains in the big tent were all stunned and their eyes widened. If you don't know, you might think that the momentum of the Snow Dragon Cavalry is to charge the infantry. But they do know that, the Snow Dragon Rider is going to break the city. Absurd. The cavalry rushed towards the tightly closed city gate of Linqing. Isn't this looking for death? As a result, apart from the vanguard being killed at the city gate, all the subsequent cavalry were unable to stop their vehicles and turned upside down. What else could there be? Not only them, but also all the Yangzhou soldiers stared wide-eyed at the stream of steel. Follow me into the city, kill the bandits, and capture Fang Lei alive. Jia Xuan roared angrily, the speed of the warhorse has soared to the extreme, and the cultivation of the great master in his body has become even more restless. Wu Ben Nan, hot blood cannot cool down. Since Jia Xuan saw that those civilians were killed and injured countless times, and even looted by officers and soldiers, her killing intent had already boiled. The city gate is right in front of me. The speed of the Snow Dragon Cavalry was like a shadow galloping, and even before the bandits above could react, they were already on the brink of the city gate in the blink of an eye. Break. Jia Xuan's cultivation was stirring around, holding a long spear and crashing into the city gate like a shooting star. Bang, the bluestone city gate, which was as high as 10 meters, suddenly shattered, and the huge wooden stakes that supported the gate from behind also exploded. Grand Master's cultivation, invincible in the world, breaking the city alone, no need to worry. Kill. After breaking through the city gate, countless bandits resisted, but these standing bandits faced the cavalry and were easily shattered by a single touch. Just a few breaths, Jia Xuan has already killed 100 bandits in a row, riding 1,000 and completely breaking through the city gates and corridors. Behind me, a snowy dragon and a fish pierced in, the one-sided slaughter has begun. Hurry up. Go find the commander of Xianwei camp. The officers and soldiers have entered the city. Run away quickly. Thieves, they are already a mob. The subordinates of Fang Lei in Tianlei village, except for the two large camps led by Lu Donghua and Bao Wenhan, were all a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Under the command of Sutan'er, the Snow Dragon Cavalry dispersed, with each 100 riders forming a team, charging into various main roads within the city. When encountering bandits, they were instantly killed, warhorses gallop, countless blood flowers. In just 10 minutes, the Snow Dragon Cavalry had already finished running through Linqing and occupied all the main transportation routes. Any bandit who dared to appear on the main road would be immediately killed. Meanwhile, the captain of the main station in the Yangzhou army remained calm in the face of danger, took over the power of the Qin commander, and led the Yangzhou army to tightly surround the city gate, preventing any bandits from escaping from the city. Not bad. Jia Xuan gave the colonel a appreciative glance. This colonel is actually a talented person. It can be seen that this colonel has a high reputation in the military, and his soldiers are convinced of him. Otherwise, he would not have been able to control the Yangzhou army in such a short period of time after the death of Commander Qin. P.S. On the first day at 10 o'clock, I ask my ancestors to give me some flowers and tickets. The author will be at 10 o'clock a day. Sheng Ming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.